Turn the mics on. Mics are on, everyone. Hello, who's online?
Anne McCray.
Hello, Anne.
Hi. Lisa Swan.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello. Victoria Hemming.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi.
She's with the ministry today.
Be nice. Well, she probably made them smarter. Right? Everybody got themselves logged in? Okay. All right, let's call the meeting for October 23rd, 2013 to order and ask that you all rise and join in the singing of our national anthem. All right, Director, proceed with roll call.
Trustee Butler.
Present.
Trustee Kartner.
Present.
Trustee Garrell.
Present.
Trustee McPherson. Present. Trustee McAllister.
Present.
First Second Vice Chair McDonald is going to join us in teleconference. First Vice Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee McRae on teleconference.
Yep, she said yes.
Good. Chair Petersma.
Present.
Trustee Richards sends her regrets. Trustee Swan on teleconference.
Present.
And Student Trustee Tyler Harbers.
A motion to approve the consent agenda items. Trustee McMillan and Trustee Garrow. Okay. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Trustee McRae, are you connected?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You might just want to double check because we're not getting your vote.
Okay.
Okay. Any declarations of conflict of interest? I motion to move into committee of the whole. Trustee Karkner, Trustee McAllister. Okay, that passes. First item tonight is the International Day for People with Disabilities, an item brought to our attention by Trustee McAllister. And Trustee McAllister, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Chair. It is I who is bringing the issue forward, but I'm bringing it forward on behalf of the SEAC committee, and in particular one of its members, Corey Earl, who was successful in getting the motion passed at SEAC. And the hope was that the Upper Canada District School Board would initiate some sort of system recognition of people with disabilities in order to raise awareness, to validate such individuals, and to present some of their success stories in the spirit of inclusion. And as a result, the following motion was carried as a recommendation to the board that SEAC recommends that the Upper Canada District School Board recognizes the International Day for People with Disabilities. The International Day of People with Disabilities is a United Nations sanctioned day that aims to promote an understanding of people with disability and encourage support for their dignity, their rights, and their well-being. The day was initiated, I believe, back in 1977 or so, and every year since on December the 3rd, it has been recognized worldwide, and especially in Canada. SEAC hopes to form a subcommittee to formulate more concrete ideas for use by the board in next year's recognition of this event. In the meantime, Superintendent Edwards is to work with the Communication Relations Management Department to promote the success stories of individual students and even employees in our schools. So that, Chair, is really the intent of the motion.
Any comments or questions? Okay, are you moving the motion?
Yes, I am.
All right, do I have a seconder? Trustee Karkner, that the Committee of the Whole recommends the Upper Canada District School Board recognize International Day for People with Disabilities, and the Upper Canada District School Board support future work of the Special Education Advisory Committee and its intent to develop a long-term plan to recognize individuals at a local level.
Two items there.
Trustee Buckland?
It separates into two distinct items. One is the ceremonial recognition. The other is a commitment to support Spec Ed. I'm just asking the mover, you see them as one?
No, I do see them perhaps as two, and perhaps they should have been split, but if you wish them split, we can split them and vote separately.
I think it's more important to the latter part, the long term of Spec Ed. So.
That would be a friendly amendment, Chair.
All right, I don't think amendment can't, well, you'd have to strike the last part. Amendment couldn't be splitting the motion. So we could strike out part and then vote on another part.
Sure, that would be fine.
That I would recognize as an amendment. So we just strike out everything after and vote on the first one, and then.
That would be fine.
Who's my seconder? Trustee Karkner, are you okay with that? So the amended motion would be that the Committee of the Whole recommends that the Upper Canada District School Board hereby recognize the International Day for People with Disabilities. Do we know what the date is?
December 3rd.
I think it should be in the motion.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I'll go ahead and call the question. Okay, that passes unanimously. The second. Do we have an idea what this would look like? Like, what recognizing looks like? What were your thoughts?
I think it is yet to be determined, but it could recognize the success stories of disabled students and disabled employees, perhaps who are in our board, and just recognize their courage, determination, and success in spite of their disabilities.
All right, so a mover, John, you want to move that?
Sure, I'll move the second. Motion, please.
Seconded by Trustee Garrow, that the Committee of the Whole recommend the Upper Canada District School Board support the future work of the Special Education Advisory Committee and its intent to develop a long-term plan to recognize individuals at a local level. Does anybody, like, this is a question for the director, just to get some clarification. Do we want to task Special Education Advisory Committee with that, or do we want to task you with that?
I think should be me.
Like, what would the Special Education Advisory Committee do in order to fulfill
I think they were going
this?
to generate ideas, not necessarily do the work, but if the director wanted to assume that responsibility, I think that would be fine.
Well, obviously, if I accept, you know, you direct me to do it, I would involve SEAC and I involve our special education.
Right.
You know, that's the only way to do it. But it would, by directing to me, it'd be board related.
So, all right. Consultation. All right, so can I just suggest this then? Because I think I'm not sure it's clear, because right now, the way I read it is that it's the work of the Special Education Advisory Committee. So if it were to read, Committee of the Whole recommend the Upper Canada District School Board develop a long-term plan to recognize individuals at a local level in consultation with the Special Education Advisory Committee.
That would be satisfactory.
Does that make more sense? Because otherwise, it seems to me that you guys are gonna do the recognizing. I'm not sure that's, I think we have a team back there that could probably do this real effectively, right?
Yes.
So are you okay with that, Trustee Garrow?
Sure.
Okay, now we need to add in somewhere, recognize individuals with disabilities, is that what we want?
That's probably more specific
Okay,
than what it says.
all right, make it, so.
We got it screened?
Yeah, put it up.
Can you put it up? Could we just make it more simple by saying, just at the end, under the direction of the director?
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
And we don't need that at a local level, do we?
That was the intent, that we recognize people in our board.
All right, say that.
Okay. At the board level then?
On a point of information, Mr. Chairman, the SC&G board had a Terry Fox Award, which was an annual award. I think the plaque is archived in another room. But it was for a student in the system. Could you clarify that for me, Trustee McAllister?
I think it was intended for students in the system, to tell you the truth. Susan Edwards, or Superintendent Edwards, am I correct?
Through you, Chair. Yes, trustee McAllister, when SEAC, part of the discussion of this was with people, students with differing abilities, to recognize that through their personal stories, for them to have a chance through telling their personal stories and the power of that. So SEAC, the conversation that we had in discussion at SEAC was really around students with differing disabilities in Upper Canada District School Board.
Okay, so does that take us away from, well, maybe I'm not understanding go ahead, Director.
Just a point of clarification. This is students with challenges and disabilities who have accomplished a significant, we have many kids, and so I sort of sense from what you were saying, Don, this is someone who's risen above their challenge and their disability to do something. I just think that should be in there too. I think it's a
Recognize successful individuals,
yeah.
success stories of individuals?
Yes. I would put the word challenges and disabilities who have successfully.
And a good deal of the discussion, I mean, I know that many of trustees have watched the video of Jason Crozier. So it's stories such as that give such powerful, positive messages, as the director said, of students with differing abilities who have risen above that and are moving quite successfully into different directions. And the courage, the strength of that, and the lessons that they have to share with all of us.
So what's the difference between exceptionalities and disabilities? Why are we using the word disability? We tend to, in the past, use exceptionalities. I mean, it makes it more consistent with the day. I get that part.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the reason?
That you've just answered the question. Yeah, it was the recognition of the reason that word came in was that December 3rd, Corey Earl, who sits on SEAC, it's the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, is actually the title of the United Nations title for the day on December 3rd. And so that's how that came out. We can use whatever word is consistent with us. We often use exceptionalities.
What is that vision of what a disability is? Is that the same as ours? So giftedness is a disability? Because giftedness is an exceptionality.
We would use that. We would use the word exceptionality.
Let's use both words then, exceptionalities and
This motion's getting out of control. Okay. See, challenges is different. Challenges and disabilities. Because I think that at a minimum, this person's gonna have to be identified in order to be eligible, because people have challenges that are not identified. Or are we just going to recognize if you lost both parents in a car crash, and that could be a challenge, right?
The intent, if I can clarify, was disabilities,
Yeah,
not
I-
challenges.
With challenges and, I mean, there is the and, it's just challenges and, I don't know, I think we just muddy it. I think we don't need that. Gosh, we're making a lot of work out of this. Future plan.
It'll just make it better.
Yes, exceptional individuals with disabilities.
I could put exceptional right before individuals
Yeah.
with disabilities.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
That's a good
I like
one.
that.
Yeah.
Exceptional.
Suppose we have 15 people trying to make a sentence up.
Okay, now the only other thing that we need to do is to change at the board level, because that can be, we often use that phrase when we're talking about this level, okay? And we need to,
Just put in the whole title of Upper Canada District School Board level.
to recognize exceptional Upper Canada District School Board individuals, UCDSB individuals. Then we're not caught into students only, right, because you wanted to do staff.
Well, it was
The
primarily
intent.
intended for students, I think.
think that's good now. Anybody have a problem with it? Oh, sorry. Okay, so the Committee of the Whole recommends the Upper Canada District School Board develop a long-term plan to recognize exceptional Upper Canada District School Board individuals with disabilities in consultation with the Special Education Advisory Committee under direction of the Director. Go ahead, you can vote. Okay. It is just a recommendation to board, so if there's something seriously wrong with it, we're not gonna, it's not jumping to board tonight, is it? So, we have a couple weeks. So if people read this and you get some feedback from SEAC that we missed it, we have a couple weeks to come back to it, okay? All right, you have any final comments, Trustee McAllister, on
No,
that?
okay, fine, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for that. Update on STEO member board shared busing. This hasn't come to board yet, right? Okay, so Trustee Swan posed the question, asked for information on what was the extent of shared busing with our coterminous board and what the plan was. I've asked one of our members of the STEO directors, Trustee McMillan, to pose the question and report back to us on what he found out. So, Trustee McMillan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. When the Chair gave me this job, the first thing I did was contact Ron Cottenham for an update on the information that we were requesting, and he was absolutely excellent in what he has given to me. Attached, you have a PDF file, and I'll be going through that and basically highlighting some of the information. But the objectives of STEO and the Ministry of Education is to establish effective route planning within the consortium. And effective routing is a key function of a high-performing transportation operation. And they have two short-term goals. The first short-term goal is to effectively use all vehicles at high capacity rate. And currently, the consortium vehicle capacity rate is 80%, which is an extremely high rating. And the second short-term goal is to better use the fleet to share busing between a separate board up in Canada. And at this point, I think it's important to make a clear distinction between shared busing and double vehicles. Shared busing is if you were to get on the school bus when it is in operation, you would find students from both boards on that bus at the same time. Double busing means that you could get on the bus and it would be all Upper Canada District School students. And if you were to get on the same bus a little bit later, it would be all separate school students because the bus is making a double run. However, the kids are not all together from the two schools. So shared, you would find both. Double, you're going to find two separate runs with each board separate at the time. So with that clear distinction, Ron has given us some numbers. But before we go into that, you'll notice that between 2012-13 last year and 2013-14, students riding on the same bus has increased by 280%. I'll go into little details what that means. It sounds high, but there's an explanation for it. And double busing has increased by 225%. And what that shows us is that there has been an increase. So if we go back to, for example, let's go back to 2011, 2012, or sorry, let's go to 2012, 2013. You'll see at that point the shared busing, the kids on the same bus, was 2.5%. What that equates to would be approximately 875 students, because we transport 35,000 students in one day. So back a year ago, we were looking at 875 of our students would all be mixed on the same bus. At that same time period, 8% were doing double vehicle runs, and what that would equate to is approximately 2,800 students. If we move ahead to this year, what you'll see is we have now increased from 2.5% in shared busing up to 7%, which works out to approximately 2,500 students. And in our double vehicles, that has now moved from 8% to 18% to having approximately 6,300 students being transferred on double bus runs. Now, as we move forward in the future, over the next 5 years, it is a goal by STAO to increase the busing of double runs to 50% and same bus to 25%. So if we look at the shared busing, that would in 5 years, the goal is to get up to 8,700 students, and the double busing would be 17,500. So they are working very, very hard to move in that direction of making the busing system very, very efficient and cost effective. When I asked Ron about obstacles, what would be some of the obstacles that would be in the way, he told me that the primary obstacle has to do, he told me initially both boards are really cooperating, because the more that we cooperate, the higher rating we get in terms of the government and how funding comes in and so on. And the only obstacle that they have to face, which is a huge obstacle, and it all has to do with time management. And it has to do with getting the students to school on time, so there's no wait time. They try to get the students arriving by bus within 5 minutes of the bell. When they are moving between schools, they try, when possible, to make it 10 minutes between schools. So you can see time is a huge factor here. And so when bell time kind of guides the whole destination of when students are being delivered to the schools, it becomes a huge factor. So that is an obstacle, but I mean, they're very good at working with that. So when we look at the numbers that Ron has given to us, you can see that, I mean, it would be really nice if every day we saw the buses filled to capacity. Right now it's running at 80% capacity of the fleet, which is really quite effective. It would be nice if we, could see the buses filled right to the brim every day, but that's not a possibility because bell times, there's so many other factors that come into this. So I think STAO is really working hard right now to be as efficient as they can. We're seeing growth. We're seeing significant growth. And of course, they have their eyes on the future over the next 5 years to move to 25% of our students on shared busing and 50% of our students involved in the double runs. Nancy, to you, Chair. Superintendent of Business. And I say Superintendent of Business because I just can't look at you and say SOB because Rick wore that well, but you don't. Superintendent of Business, Nancy. Say that with all due respect. Is there anything you want to add, because you were speaking to Ron today on this as well?
No, you did a great job. Covered everything.
Okay. Trustee Swan, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, through you, Chair. I guess my big concern here, one of the concerns is we still have many students waiting or on buses for an hour. And also with the double busing, it's really not helping the environment here, running two buses when we still have a 20% capacity on many of our buses. And I'm just wondering is it a staffing issue that this has to be a 5-year plan? Can we not get more aggressive here in trying to attain the same the students on the same bus at a far higher level? I guess those are my basic questions to start.
Trustee McMillan?
Through you, Chair. Trustee Swan, I wish I had specific answers to you. What they do at STAO in terms of organizing, coordinating all of these 35,000 students on a daily basis is beyond my grasp. I'm sure it's much, much more technical than you and I can even imagine. And as I said right now, they're running at 80% capacity in terms of, or 80%, let me just check this one. The vehicle capacity rate is approximately 80%. Everything is based on bell times. It's all based on wait time, shortening the wait time as much as possible at the school, because there's other issues that come in there, supervision and so on. Everything has to run just like a clock. And so I certainly understand and appreciate what you're saying and understand your concerns. I don't think it is as easy for any of us to think it can happen that way, though. That there's so many factors involved. It's not quite that simple.
Mm.
The motivation, there's nothing to say that either board has to participate in this, correct? So it's, if either board chose to, the only penalty would be that they would have to pay the difference for the increase in costs. Am I correct?
That's right.
So I think that that's important, that despite our maybe eagerness to participate in shared busing, that it takes two, and there's nothing we can do in order to force other members of the consortium to participate. Although we don't have any sense that they don't want to participate, it's just that.
Well, through you, Chair, I asked Ron that specifically. I wanted to know if there was cooperation on both sides. If that could have been that was one of my reasons for asking for an obstacle, and he told me no, that was not the case, that both boards are certainly cooperating. But you're 100% right. There's nothing saying that has to happen. But it's certainly the higher rating you get comes from cooperation and working together as best we can.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Buckland?
Question, when is the next contract negotiated?
We're currently in holding pattern because the RFP process has been frozen, and so what's happening is they're just rolling over the contract that existed before. I think that's pretty much the extent.
12 months, yeah.
I think it's rolling over on a 12-month cycle right now.
I did have a second point.
Go ahead.
Last night's retirement meeting, the director introduced a new sophisticated inclement weather prediction system, which elaborate on later.
Later? Okay.
Have to be later.
I shared it with the chair before. I think he's familiar with it.
Later.
I think you must have been speaking to a different chair.
You were there.
Any other comments or questions?
For
Okay.
you, Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair McMillan. I still, have you heard anything? You're on the committee, are you not? The consortium committee?
Yes?
Has the other board asked for more aggressive targets towards the same type busing?
Through you, Chair, it has not been brought up at the board table, but I do know that when we work at that board table, that all of us want the same thing. We want to have a transportation system that is efficient and effective, and is as effective as it can possibly be. So I know that they want the same things we want, but they've never asked. In fact, we never asked either until you brought it forward, which was, I'm glad you did, because it gave us a good indication of the growth that has taken place over the last year and what the targets are in 5 years from now.
And I've talked to Ron, and he's just been great working with me here on some of the challenges in my areas. And I know we've removed buses from the road, which has, lowered the carbon footprint and also made significant savings. But I'm just wondering, could I put a motion on the table in regards to asking them to perhaps increase, or just to increase the numbers that they're looking at over a 5-year period and be a bit more aggressive in getting shared busing?
So, the motion, if I could just paraphrase it for you, Trustee Swan, motion to ask STEO to prepare a feasibility, to undertake a feasibility study to accomplish the shared busing targets in a shorter frame, in a shorter time period?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. Accomplish a feasibility study to accomplish the shared busing targets in a shorter period of time. Do I have a seconder? Trustee McAllister? Do we have to go to the board, do you think, to do this? Do we have to do this, or can we just, I don't know. I suppose maybe we should.
Yeah.
We probably should.
Motion makes it stronger.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, was there a question over? Trustee Cartner?
And what you repeated as the possible motion, you just referred to the shared busing. I think it involves both double and shared.
Are you talking about, it's not so much the shared busing, is it shared busing that, you're looking at the feasibility and the effectiveness of the busing that we want to do, because they go hand in hand. We're never gonna see a day when we have all of them on the same buses, I don't think. There's always gonna be a need for double run, because there's other factors that come into this, and that's where bell time comes into this. But bell time is a huge issue, and there's just no way that in 5 years we could have, let's say, 75% of both the separate and us on the same bus, because I wouldn't even begin to guess what bell times would look like.
Yeah. Well, I think, but in fairness, let them come back and tell us that.
Certainly, but trustee, you're saying shared, that there should, we got double now in there? Is that what you're saying? Double as well? And just through you, Chair, the reason I say that is when you look at their goal over the next 5 years is to increase double busing by 50% and to increase the riding time at the same time, the same bus, sorry, that would be shared. So it increase double busing by 50% and increase shared busing by 25%. So they've got goals right now with numbers beside it for each double and for shared.
Well, but in fairness to, I don't believe that, and you can correct me, Trustee Swan, but you didn't mention double busing. I believe that you just talked about the shared busing target of 25% or whatever it was, that you want to see that be more aggressive. Am I wrong?
Yes, I was more concerned about shared busing. That's what I've had a lot of concerns from my constituents about shared busing. The same bus going by their house, and then a bus coming by, picking up, then another bus coming right next door and picking up. And it's twice the gas, it's twice the buses. And I think if we could just target that one, that was my primary concern, with the same bus with both boards having students on that bus.
Double runs is really a different issue and actually leads to a whole host of other issues. Sorry. But, okay. So I have a mover, Trustee Swan, a seconder, Trustee McAllister.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Garrow?
Yeah, I just think that it's impressive, even what they're doing. Just being ex-military, just the logistics of moving that amount of students each day is incredible. And going into looking at some goals, even now, going from 7 to 25, 18 to 50 is extraordinary. I'm really impressed with that. Like even establishing that type of a goal, logistics, it's amazing.
All right, call the question. Okay, everybody's in favor, it's unanimous. So we didn't give you a timeline, but give us a sense maybe at the next how, I mean, we can ask, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll undertake it. So you can take it to the board and see what happens. Okay. Thank you, Trustee McMillan. So the next item is a request from the ministry for school boards to pose questions such as what does student well-being mean to you, and what's the role of school in supporting it? From your perspective, what further opportunities exist in closing the gaps and increase equity to support all children and students in reaching their full potential? This is a toolkit that they've provided and asked boards to undertake a community consultation on. I put it on the agenda, and because I think that if you're asked by the ministry, the least you can do is have a conversation about it. I by no means am suggesting that I think we should engage this, and I believe that, and I bring that with a number of concerns. One, I find their timelines odd, that they would drop this on us at the beginning of a school year, give us less than really a month to organize and obtain or prepare and get this information for November 15th. I am questioning why they are undertaking this approach, which seems to be a duplication of what our job is. These are questions that we grapple with as a board all the time. And so how feeding information back to the ministry, how is this going to help them? I think that it's important that we dovetail this with our statements made a year and a half ago on the importance of local control and local autonomy. I am suspicious that this is being operated by the same unit that was looking at amalgamating school boards, and that this is maybe a different approach to creating engaging the public in making statements that, like, oh well, all day every day kindergarten is really great, and thank goodness we have a ministry that's doing all these wonderful things. And then the logic then goes, well, obviously people want more control by the ministry, so we need fewer school boards. I don't understand what their intent is. So I'm not at all recommending that we participate in this, but I also wanted to give you the opportunity to weigh in on this issue. I think that we can send back a response saying that thank you for asking. We believe that our students are best served by a school board system that is funded according to local needs, and decisions for students are made at a local level. That to me is the response to each one of them, each one of the questions. So I know some school boards are engaging in these conversations. I haven't talked to any of them. Maybe some of you have seen some of what they've done. So anyway, I bring it, and I'm interested in what you have to say. Trustee McMillan?
Just through you, Chair, when I was looking at the questions, I have no problems with having a discussion about those type of questions. I think they're important questions for all of us to talk about. What bothered me is when I went into Great to Excellent and I started to read the ministry document on it, in the first, let's say, 5 or 6 paragraphs, it just screams politics. And the whole thing is so politically motivated, and it just seemed to me that the whole point of Great to Excellent was nothing more than to to prove that over the last 10 years under McGinty's leadership that the Liberal Party has done wonderful things for education, see what we've done. And I just couldn't see the point after that, beyond the politics. Now, I could be wrong, but that's all it seemed to me was something to boost McGinty's legacy in terms of education. And that's not to say that he hasn't done wonderful things, but I don't think that politics has any play in this particular conversation. The questions itself, I have no problems with. But I think the motive behind it concerns me.
Trustee Karkner?
Question through you, Chair, for the Director. Did anyone from this board and our senior staff attend the consultation on the 15th?
Not to my knowledge, no.
This item is on the agenda for the regional meeting on Saturday, being held here. And it will probably bring in what OBSPA is planning to answer on those 7 questions. But I know when I was at the Program and Education Committee meeting, they encouraged all school boards to submit either discussions in reference to those questions, and if we decide it's what you have just repeated earlier about wanting it to be a local decision on a lot of these things, I'm a little concerned about that. There may be political ramifications or innuendos in here, but I think, are we going to shirk our duties by not sending in a response?
What's our duty?
To educate the children in Upper Canada in the best of our ability.
How does, I guess I look at our role as prescribed in 169, and I don't see that filling out ministry surveys in there. Would there be shirking our duty? Would we?
Well, in response, I know that the money comes from the ministry, and if we don't put input into these kinds of things, are they going to come back and say, well, the boards didn't want to have any input?
Yeah.
Therefore.
That's why it's here. We talked about that.
Consultation either, just for the record.
You weren't invited to the consultation?
I did not receive an invitation. There were invitations went out to certain groups, but to my knowledge, we did not.
And they listed the groups they went to, and I think that the education sector would be invited.
Oh, cool. The members were. Different people were.
I think that, one of the things that bears thinking about is that when we have asked them to engage with us on issues of importance, we get zero, nothing. And I find it, so there's a two-way street. They talk about it being a partnership. The Education Act refers to it as a partnership, and I don't know. Trustee Buckland?
Well, perhaps Minister Sandals already has the answers. She was on CBC in Ottawa last week, and so the public was asked to comment on what education will look like in the 21st century with the big 4 C's is what she's recommending. So she's really, and I agree with her, she's gone beyond the trustee role. So they ignored us and said, what does the electorate think? So they plan to move from there, I assume. But, we'll be discussing it with as Carol said, with the Eastern Ontario trustee representatives this weekend. Hope everybody can come to that. Would be another point. I don't really see our answers being taken at any value.
There's a good skit in one of the Yes Ministers that, the discussion is, well, that doesn't leave enough time for you to take the data that you've collected and write a report, and sort of the retort from the bureaucrats is, we never ask questions and before we've had the report written. And you look at the timelines, November 15th, and they're going to turn this around and have a report to us in November. That's fast. That's real fast. Trustee McAllister?
Working floors.
Senators on it.
Thank you, Chair. I don't share the cynicism in this room. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
It isn't every day that the minister of the government asks my opinion, and I intend to give it. And I have, I don't believe we have patience to go over my response to all 7 questions, but I would like to deal with question number 6 if I could.
Floor is yours. Until I cut you off, you can do whatever you like.
Thank you. The question is, how can we use technology more effectively in teaching and learning? And permit me to say at the outset here, I'm not a technological wizard, but our kids are, and our grandkids are. And technology is a tool which can never replace good learning. There is a consensus that the technology can play a major role in how students learn and teachers teach. According to Section 169 of the Education Act, schools have a requirement to integrate and use technology to further student learning, influence teacher instruction, and develop technical skills that students can use in their daily lives and their future careers. That's what they call 21st century learning. It's more than the use of laptops, tablets, smartphones, TVs, smart boards. It's more than e-learning. It's web-based applications and new capabilities which allow students and teachers to share, discuss, and learn, which means critical thinking and problem solving. And let's be honest, it's all of the above and more. The effective and purposeful use of technology in our schools requires an adjustment to our mindset as to what schools are, how they are organized, how curriculum is delivered, and how students use it to learn best. Let's talk about a local situation in Upper Canada. And virtually all of our secondary schools are small, with the attendant problems of being able to deliver the necessary credits in a timely manner, especially at the senior levels, to prepare students for college, university, and places of work. It cannot be all things to all people. Choices must be made. There's a tremendous duty on boards to maintain viable schools. And to date, that viability has been based largely on a minimal number of students in one building. What if that building were considered to be a larger community? Cooperation with a neighboring school. Let me be specific about Ward 4. And you can extrapolate this scenario to schools in your wards as well. As a hypothetical example, Athens District High School has a top-notch senior course, for example, mathematics. However, in year X, whether it be next year or year 15, pick the year, there are insufficient numbers to be able to run this course. GISS, Regional District, for example, may also have the same issue. What if the teacher in Athens District High School using Link, Skype, Adobe Connect, podcasts, teleconferences, or whatever the technology, were to broadcast his or her lesson to those 3 groups of 12 students in each of those schools for a total of 36. The podcast would be supported by teachers in their home schools with daily follow-up with support for students and their assignments. The process could be repeated in other courses. It sounds simple. However, there are logistical barriers such as articles in the Education Act, timetables, collective agreements, and some technological issues. None is insurmountable. It would be a win-win for students, staff, and parents, and therefore it's my view that we can use technology more effectively in teaching and learning. And local boards need to be given the latitude and framework within which to find such solutions. We do not need Queen's Park imposing more programs, new policies, fresh initiatives, and so on. Listen to us, Minister. Provide us with the resources we need at the local level. Let us do the job we were elected to do so our teachers, educational assistants, and support staffs can implement such a strategy in my schools and in your schools. So that is my view of how technology can be used more effectively in teaching and learning. And I am absolutely certain that the minister will listen to me.
But I might point out that you've taken 7 minutes to say what I said in 15 seconds. I mean,
But
it's
I
the
said
same
it better.
message. But you said it longer. Brevity, my man, has a some play. But anyway, I don't take issue with anything that you've said. It's just, I think that it's the same message. If somebody wants to sit down and write 7 answers that all say the same thing, that yes, this is great and we know what we're doing, please respect our authority to do so as stated under the Education Act, I have no problem with that, and we can submit that. I do point out, though, they're not asking us This is community consultations. They're expecting us to, on their behalf, go out and run consultations. I did not come across the word trustee in this document.
That's right.
It says community. Now, we can say we're part of the community, that's not a problem, but I don't think that's their vision. I think that they're asking us to do things like we've done in the past when we want to talk about character. We bring people around and we talk about character. When we want to talk about libraries, we brought people around and we talked about libraries. And we've used the strategy of bringing people together to get feedback. And that's, I think, what they're asking us to do. And so, but I don't have a problem with us submitting our own. I don't. So really the question I'm asking is, are we going to ask administration to do to organize community consultations? Go ahead.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
First of all, with community consultations, I think one of the easiest places to go would be our parent council. Yet the time frames they're giving us are not enough time. Parent councils meet once a month, and right there, I say they're off the mark. And I tend to agree with some of the comments made earlier. I think it was by Vice Chair McMillan about the political agenda here. And I have concerns, though I agree with everything Trustee McAllister said about what we can offer for technology. I think we're best to hold off on this because I think it's putting too much taxation on our staff to do a task. We would be putting too much time on them to do a task, and what are we really getting back for our students? Thank you.
Trustee McAllister?
I agree that the time frame is not in order for us to do any kind of a public consultation. It's a question I think we might want to pose to the school councils, but I think we are running out of time.
I think that I don't really see a problem. I don't know what communication we've made to our communities. I don't have a problem with even us putting out a release stating the ministry has this. You can go online and fill this out. We can give our own little take on it, and if we want to come up with our own response and submit it. Trustee McAllister, if you want to pen something, maybe 200 words each answer, 300 words, all including 300? Okay, 300 words. I don't care how many words. Then we can bring that back to the next meeting and decide whether we want to send that in, if you want to do that.
No, I don't.
You don't? Okay.
Frankly, I've done one, and that was the one that was interesting in me, so
Okay, sounds good. So, I don't really see a whole lot of interest in this. Do you have anything else? You're gonna submit those answers, I take it anyway, right?
I'll submit that answer, yes.
Okay. All right, so does anybody have a problem with us just generally communicating that this is out here? I mean, we can do that part anyway.
Chair?
Yes.
So if we wanted to respond to them, we do it on our own?
Yep, there's a link that you can go to
You're right,
and.
'cause I don't see anything that's stating as a trustee, but I know on question 3, to close gaps, from our perspective, what gaps are they talking about? And, but
You know what I would ask though? This is what I think. I want to hear some of these responses. Like I want to hear the answers to these questions. Like I think that if somebody's going to take the time to write them, then let us know because we should be getting this feedback. We should be using some of the, if there's some idea out there, some gap, some way that we can close gaps. Do we not want to know that? Somebody's got a great idea?
that's right.
So maybe we put it on our Facebook and ask people to post stuff on our Facebook and invite people to do that. Like, they want to send it to the minister, that's fine. But I want to get that information because it's our job, after all.
That's right.
What do you think, David?
I agree, I totally agree.
Great, I love it. We all agree. All right. let's move on. Let's move back to a regular board. So I need a motion. Trustee Karkner and Trustee McMillan. Should be an online poll. Is Trustee McAllister's answer better than Trustee Peterson's?
Yes. There's the poll.
Maybe the resources were in the length of the response.
Trustee McAllister.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Favor,
Sorry,
okay.
I was doing something else with regard to SkyDrive.
Okay.
Our technologies are.
Okay, so report from Public Session Committee of the Whole. We have two motions. That the Upper Canada District School Board approve policy 1001, Director's Evaluation. And second, so can I get a mover and a seconder on that? Trustee Garrow, Trustee Karkner,
On the first one?
first one. Go ahead and take a vote. Okay. Trustee Buckland?
Right.
Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, second motion that the Buchanan District School Board remove the student trustee protege position. Moved by Trustee McAllister, seconded by Trustee McMillan. Any comments or questions on this one? All right, pose the question then. Okay, that passes with 2 opposed, Trustee Karkner and Trustee Swan. Report of the Special Education Advisory Committee, Trustee McAllister.
I think I've already given my report with regard to that,
Okay,
yeah, that motion. That is it.
all right. Any questions for our SEAC members? Okay, thank you. Move on now to the next item, which is report. Do you have anything that you want to report on with the Ontario Public School Board Association, Trustee Buckland?
I gave a report of our last meeting. I would announce that we are meeting this Saturday here. We are hosting the Eastern Ontario Public School Trustees. All trustees are invited.
Okay, any comments or questions? Report of the student trustee.
Thank you, Chair. So just, we had a good turnout. Our last Friday was our first Senate meeting of the year on the 18th. We had a good turnout. Almost all the senators showed up, despite a late bus. We went on as planned. Trustee McMillan, Trustee Garrow, and Trustee Liaison Officer Lisa Raymond were in attendance. Trustee as well, or McAllister. We had guest speaker Frank Hummel come in and speak about the Speak Up grant, which is a student leadership grant of up to $1,000 that the students of Senate are applicable to apply to. And we also had Carla Vanderhelm share information and demonstrate link. She ran the program and showed us a live conference with Tim Martin back at the board office and explained to us how that works. So we're looking to use that further in Senate to communicate. We passed the bylaws, but there was a notice of motion made regarding it was brought up by a senator, there is no process that states exactly how the House leaders are the individual leaders of the groups or families of schools, exactly how they're appointed or elected. This came in after we passed the bylaws, so this will be brought up at our next meeting. We chose our House leaders for the this year. Also, we have our theme set for our next 3 meetings. We have kind of a fun dress-up theme. Our next theme for December 6th, our next meeting is School Spirit Day, so if you do attend. We also had many ideas suggested for guest speakers. Varied a lot between one idea was Ryan's Well, a charity that builds wells in Africa. We're going to look at having them come in and speak, and anti-bullying presentations, motivation presentations, and school spirit ideas. So we'll have to figure those out and for our guest speakers. And last, we created a Facebook and Twitter group. I will email out the links to those to trustees so that they can follow along with what is happening. So that's that for the Senate meeting on Friday. Also, I attended today a great presentation for the LGBTQ forum today. It was a great turnout there. Over 300 students showed up, and a lot of great speakers today. Lots to be learned there. So that's everything complete.
Any comments or questions? Trustee McMillan?
Just through you, Chair, I just want to, I think, start by saying I thank the trustee. Trustee Garrell was there, Trustee McCallish, you get there every time you can possibly get. I know Trustee Cartner, you're usually always there. And I'm sure, Tyler, you can help me with this, I'm sure that the students noticed and certainly appreciate trustees being there as a support to Student Senate. And I just feel like we're welcomed by the kids, and they certainly value us, our input. And we never miss an opportunity to get some input in terms of the political process, which has been really interesting with the bylaws, because certainly there was a situation where they wanted to change the bylaw just after we passed it, and we had to learn the process. And of course, the other person that I think is the heart and soul of the Student Senate, because I think she lives and breathes it, and that's Lisa. You do all behind the scenes stuff, and there's so many things you do, and that certainly is so appreciated. It's amazing what you do, but you just sit there like you haven't done anything, and we all know you've done it all, so thank you so much for what you do there. So I'm looking forward to these next few Senate meetings. They're going to be a lot of fun. And, you were right about today, getting all the kids together. It was amazing. And we have our boas here. Director and I both have one. Problem is we put them on and we wear, and then take them off and we wear it for the rest of the night. But that was amazing to see the kids, because the energy in that room was phenomenal. I wish I could have stayed longer, but I know that you spoke at the end on behalf of us and behalf of the students, so great. Thanks so much for going really well.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Trustee McMillan. Okay, we do. We're, okay. You want to move it then? Trustee McMillan that moves the Upper Canada District School Board endorse the Student Senate bylaws effective October 23rd. Seconded by Trustee Carkner. Go ahead and call a question. Okay, that passes unanimously, thank you. Okay, that brings an end to our meeting. Just before one of the hotly anticipated events and the ongoing saga of negotiations has occurred. We now finally have the bill. Bill 122 was introduced yesterday, was it? Into the House, in the Ontario Legislature, and sets out a plan by which we will, the province expects us to bargain. It's quite a lengthy document. There's a lot in it. There's a lot of very interesting language. I've had a cursory look at it. There's some things that I encourage people to look at, like the definition of strike, which was interesting. And we will have a report, I hope, come back once staff have had a chance with some ideas on how they see we could work with it. And while I might have been dismissive of the earlier attempt by the ministry to get some feedback from us, I think that this may be one that we might want to send a team to Toronto and make a presentation if they do hold hearings on this. I'm sure they'll refer it to some committee, but I think this is important enough that we register our feeling on it. We know that we've been dealing with this issue informally since 2003, this construct. This will really set it down in writing, and there are some huge implications for how we govern locally. And so I draw your attention to that. I ask that you take some time to read the 32 pages, follow the debates in the House, and we'll look forward to OPSPA's take on it as well. I think we have to be cautious. They're thrilled that they're named. This is something that they've fought for. They're also thrilled that we'll be mandated to pay fees to them. So this is a very significant win organizationally for them. But I think we have to reserve judgment on how good it is for kids and our ability to fulfill the mandate that they clearly state. We are the employers, but I think we're the only employers probably in the world that don't have total control of the contract with our employees. It's a very odd paradigm. So anyway, I leave that with you. Director, do you have any comments?
I just agree with that. I think this will be very important for us with the role that we've played leadership-wise in the province with the OLRB, that we draw their attention to the fact that we have an opinion, and it was well articulated last year as we provided leadership for the province. But I may, in closing the director's comments, I was really impressed also with, I'm wearing this because they gave it to me, with the kids. When you get to a group of about 300 students, high school students, and the energy they had and the comments that they made, and teachers who said this was really worthwhile. And it was all organized in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. It was fun. There were over 50, I believe, students on the waiting list who we couldn't put in the building. And it just shows we have to, again, it was marvelous. But the other thing I want to bring to everyone's attention, many of you were there last night, that we had the retirement dinner. It was so nice to see groups of people who had worked for us who came back, and I think it's something we've got to continue to think about, a big board like this, to make that evening intimate and worthy. I'd like to thank the trustees and the senior team who read the pieces, and I've received a really nice email about thanking us for doing that. Just asked us to highlight a little better where the Brockville Convention Center was. I guess we had one person and a trustee circling for hours. That you weren't alone, Art. There are some other people circling Brockville to find the convention center, and I got a lovely letter. The lady said she was an hour and a half late, but she was glad she got there. Good night for all of us. And I still hear the drums too.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Trustee McMillan, Trustee McAllister. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.